Welcome to my new channel, Resolve Mastery. So this is my very first video for Resolve Mastery, and I wanted to kind of give you a quick breakdown on my background. I have been a working editor in Hollywood for over 20 years. I moved to LA in 1999. I got into editing pretty quickly after that and was able to establish a career for myself for, since then, really, 25 years. So I've got a lot of experience. I've been using DaVinci Resolve since, probably at least 15 years. When it was really just a color-only system, I used it. And I kind of evolved along with it, using it as it became an editing and visual effects system, in addition to all the color. So what I am doing with Resolve Mastery is I am offering something that I think is a little bit unique on YouTube. A lot of people have these tutorials, they have these classes that you can buy, they're big video programs, I think I spent a lot of my career training staff, teaching people how to do the things that I had learned how to do. And I think I'm pretty good at it. It was one of the things I liked the most about my job when I was still working in post-production. And I really want to kind of carry that into what I'm doing now. So the philosophy is I'm going to meet you where you are. So if you're interested in my Resolve coaching, you can watch my video. I'm going to give you a little bit of a demo on how I would do some green screen work here. But if you're interested, sign up for a free consultation, resolvemastery.com, and we'll have a quick conversation. See, no charge. We can see if maybe this would work for you. And then after that, if you'd like to buy some time to actually train with me, we can do that. We do it over Zoom. We share screens. We can really dig in and teach you whatever you're looking to know. Okay, so what I'm going to do today is this shot right here. This is my lovely wife, and this is a shot of her. We want to make her into like a newscaster. That's basically the idea here. Now, the shot right now has no color correction on it. As you can see, it's shot against a green screen. There's no key yet. So our goal here today is going to be to key this shot, to color correct it, put a background back there, and basically make it look like she's on a news set. So there are some things about this shot and the way that I'm going to be approaching it today that you should know ahead of time. The first thing to know is I always like to work in my Resolve projects in a color managed setup. And we can take a quick look at it here. Essentially, I'm delivering in Rec 709. I'm working on a Mac, so I actually like this Rec 709A Gamma. I'm not going to dig too far into that, but I like this because we are going to be jumping into Fusion, and color management, turning on color management actually seems to help with working in Fusion as well. You end up working in a true kind of linear way, and linear color is always best for visual effects. All right, so take a shot of that, turn it on yourself, play around with it, come up with your own color management things, drop a comment, tell me what you think about color management inside of Resolve. I know not everybody's a big fan. I like it because I come at things in more of an editor visual effects perspective than from a colorist perspective. I do know some things about color, and we are going to dig into color a little bit here, but my background is more editing and visual effects. But there you go. I like color management. So we're going to start with the shot. We've actually got a finished version of it right here that we're going to try to kind of rebuild. So this is what I built earlier to make sure I could kind of do this. It's pretty good. There might be a few things I would tweak on it still, but I'm starting to feel pretty good about it. So I wanted to go ahead and shoot this tutorial and see if I can pull it off. And I'm not working with a script. I'm not doing anything. I'm kind of dig into this shot, show you what my process would be if I were going to have to do this shot from scratch. So the first thing I'm going to do is find my background. It's one of these up here. Let's take a quick look at these. I believe that's the one we're using. Yes, it is. So these backgrounds, by the way, were generated in Unreal Engine using a virtual production technique. This video is not about that, but we use Jet Set Cine to track our cameras, the studio I work at. We're actually about to get into using a Vive Mars, so maybe I'll make a video about that eventually. But this video today is about Chroma Keying, not Unreal Engine. We're going to stick with the program. All right, so here we go. F11. Oop, I put that on the wrong track. We're going to redo that. Let's patch it to the right track. We want it down on 1 because I like to composite in the timeline. And the reason why is I just feel that the color workflow, you got a bit more control. It's a lot easier to do if you can have your background and foreground as separate layers in your timeline as opposed to building the whole comp inside of Fusion. I do kind of mimic the comp inside of Fusion so I can kind of see things inside of Fusion, but I do a lot of back and forth between Fusion and Edit and Color when I'm doing this kind of thing, because I kind of think they all work together, especially Color and compositing. So there we go. We got our background. Let's go ahead and put it in. It's patched to V1. I hit F11 fill, or excuse me, that is a fit to fill. That will fill the entire background that I had marked. If I deactivate, that's a D. I'm just hitting the key D and it turns off that second layer so we can see our background. That looks good. It is the same background we're using here on this shot. Great. So step into Fusion. Step into Fusion. Da 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 da. All right. I was listening to some Iron Maiden earlier. That was pretty cool, but I don't want to get a copyright hit, so I'm not going to turn it on. All right, so the first thing I like to start with whenever I'm doing any key is a clean plate. And a clean plate, if you're doing a shot like this, which means the camera's locked off and your actor doesn't move a whole lot, you could actually shoot this clean plate on set. And as a matter of fact, I would recommend doing that if that's the kind of shot that you're doing. If you're doing something with a lot of movement, I would stay away from doing anything like trying to recreate the shot. But in this case, I am going to make a clean plate because I did not shoot a clean plate. So that was my own fault. I actually should have. I forgot about it. The production this day was a little bit rough. We had a lot of trouble. So the clean plate got kind of thrown to the wayside. We were just trying to get the thing shot. So I like to hit Shift Spacebar. That brings up all of my effects that I can do in Fusion. What we're looking for is the effect called Clean Plates. There it is. And it connected to our shot because we actually had the shot selected. So let's drag it up here to 1. I just dragged that straight up. That's viewer 1, viewer 2. So viewer 1 is what we're going to look at to evaluate our clean plate. So I'm going to take a sample over here. All right, see what it's doing? It's actually kind of the inverse of a key. It doesn't remove the background. It removes the foreground, your figure, your character, your actor, your subject. That's the word I was looking for. So that's good enough for where we're going to start. Then I'm going to pull this tolerance up. Boom. That gets it a little bit better. Then I'm going to start to erode it out. Now look at this. What I'm trying to do is disappear her. Okay. And make a nice solid green background. Obviously, we're not there yet. I dragged the grow edges out. The reason I did that is because I want to see what it's kind of filling in. It's taking pixels at the edge of my key and using them to fill in. So there's 2 ways it does it. It does this grow edges, and if you double click on the word grow edges, you can always reset it to the default. You can also use this fill. Now, sometimes one will give you a better result than others. What we want to do is start to erode this to get this to be a nice solid green, but only just there. We don't want to go any further because then we start to erode our edges too much and it might not work all that well. That's actually pretty good, but that's almost all the way. So we're going to try another technique. We're going to turn off fill and we're going to use the grow edges. That's not really a lot better. I like to see which one is better. I think the fill is actually better. Yeah. So we're going to use that. The other thing I like to do at this point is I like to freeze this frame. That is because we are going to use this as a clean plate, and if you freeze it, it doesn't move around and change on you. Because the actor's not moving, that's going to be ideal for us. So I just select my clean plate. I hit Shift Spacebar, and I hit freeze, or I type freeze, and it gives me the time stretcher. So at this point, I've actually got a freeze frame, but it's frozen on frame 0. I want to look at the frame that I'm actually looking at, which is this frame over here, frame 325. So if we type in 325, then our freeze frame and our clean plate match. So now when I drag this back and forth, nice. We got a nice solid green on our clean plate. Actually, not the clean plate. We want to look at the freeze frame because you see the clean plate was fluctuating a little bit. This is better. Great. Perfect. That is step one. Step two, get your delta keyer in line. So we're going to do the same thing. Shift space bar, delta keyer. There it is right up there. I'm just putting it out here now to space because I'm going to do a couple things. The first thing is I'm going to add a little bit of noise reduction because I find it helps pull a nice key. So we go and just use the regular old Resolve noise reducer. We're actually use it on our clean plate too. That's just fine. Not going to make any difference really, but it might even make it a little bit better on the clean plate as well. All right, so here we go. We plug that now into our delta keyer. And the first thing we want to do is we want to get this clean plate plugged into the delta keyer also. So I'm right clicking and dragging. See this? It gives me this little menu. We want to put that on clean plate. Boom, look at that. We got a key already. Nice. It's looking pretty good. That's our alpha channel. I'm pretty happy with that. The one thing I want to look at, and this is why I put this noise reduction in here because we were at this step. You see how there's this kind of noise in the hair? That's pretty typical. We work with the low ISO native and we do lots of things to try to minimize the noise, but we still end up getting some noise. So what I like to do here is I look at the mat and I just start bringing up this threshold. Watch what happens. Oh, not this threshold. Oh, actually, that's messing up my clean plate. So let's go back here and plug this back into the clean plate, meaning we're not going to use the noise reduction on the clean plate. I thought sometimes it can improve the results, but as we saw there, that was actually causing us some problems. We don't want that. We want this, this, and we want to adjust the threshold on this. Oh, look at that. It's already starting to help. You see that? I want to drag it up and down. Now, again, just like everything in compositing, the best thing you can do is do it slowly. So I'm holding down the command key. I'm on a Mac right now, but if you're on a PC, it's the control key. And just drag it to the right a little bit. Keep going. There you go. It's incrementing pretty slow. That's helping. We don't want to go too far. Yeah, look at that. That's cleaning up our mat pretty nicely without losing a whole lot of detail. So now, let's look at this delta keyer again. Are we already looking at that? That's looking pretty good. Look at that around the hair. Now, we're not really seeing much yet, but we can take a quick look out here and see if anything good is happening. Well, look, nothing's happening. You know why? Because we never collected the delta keyer. We did not connect the delta keyer output to our media out. Let's do that. Boom, there we go. Now we should be able to see a little something. All right, so that's where we are right now. It's far from perfect, but we've done step one. We've gotten a key going. So let's step back into Fusion. Now I'm going to do a couple things. The first thing I want to do is work on this mat. So I'm going to look at the output of the delta keyer, just hit the A key. That takes me to the alpha. This is the alpha that it's making. Now our goal is to have everything that's going to be opaque white and everything that's going to be transparent be black. And the things that are going to be translucent, somewhat see-through, should be gray. So we're going to try to achieve all that on this mat. All right, so the first thing is we got to look at the delta keyer controls. Here they are right over here. I like to start with balance because frequently, as you see, when you play with the balance, oh, look at that. That did a lot to help our key, quite a lot. That key's looking pretty good now. There's still some issues and we're going to deal with them, but that is not bad. Let's take a quick look at that in the Edit tab. Well, there you go. I'm going to go full screen for a second so you can kind of see that. That's looking a lot better. She still looks kind of green, obviously, but the hair's looking nice. And the hair is usually the most difficult thing when you're doing a shot like this. And my actress, my beautiful wife, has nice flowing hair, and we can see through it at certain times, and we want it to look good and not clunky and give away the fact that we're working on a green screen. So our goal is going to be to try to make it like we're not on a green screen. So let's go back into Fusion. Here we go. So yeah, this looks pretty good to the eye, but we're going to take a closer look. If you go to these dots and you turn on gain gamma and then start to bring that up a little bit. Oh, look at that. Let's see. Let's pull these both up. Okay, so obviously our blacks are not pure black. That's not a terribly difficult fix. Let's come over here to our delta keyer again. We go to the delta keyer matte controls now. And what we're going to do is take this bottom end And again, you can use the control key and drag in the numbers. Just do it, boom, just till it disappears. Till it disappears. Okay, we just cleaned up our background. That's looking pretty good. And a lot of our other mat looks pretty nice. I'm going to reset these so we're seeing this normal now. So we're still keep maintaining some of this hair detail. Looks pretty good. I think that might end up looking all right. Let's step back out here. I know there's going to be some things we're going to want to fix, but we're getting something that's pretty good here. Now, if I try to play this, it's kind of clunky and slow. It's because it's not cached yet. You see that red line? That indicates that it is going to be trying to cache, make my shot viewable. To turn that on, you look at render cache. I like to use smart because basically it lets my machine figure out when it needs to cache. So right now we can't really watch this yet because it's caching. But as you can see, when it turns from red to blue, those frames are not cached. So we're going to keep working. Even the shot that I did earlier, as you see, hasn't cached yet. But that's quite all right. We're going to come back over here, go to Fusion. And we're going to actually build a kind of temp version of this shot inside of Fusion. The reason why we do that is so we don't always have to step out to look at it. So we have this same background. I believe it's this one right here. We can drag it right out of our media pool into the Fusion node graph. Turn off the alpha channel, make sure, yeah, that's the right one. Okay, so one thing about this graphic, it is 1920 by 1080. My video is actually 3840 by 2160. It's UHD. That's HD. So in order to make this all work, the first thing I'm going to have to do is turn that shot, that background, into UHD. So I use the resize node. That's the quickest, easiest way to do that. And if everything's working pretty well, it should actually do it automatically. Yeah, look at that. Now we have that graphic in the correct resolution. Okay, and so we can take the output of our delta keyer, throw it right down here. You do this, you can drag output of one to the output of another node. It creates an automatic comp. See that? There's our comp now inside of Fusion. Excuse me. So now we can get a better look at that. Let's zoom in. There's going to be some stuff around the edge that's going to be a problem. So we're eventually going to fix that. We've actually got some spill suppression turned on right now, and I really don't like the spill suppression that we're getting because it's actually causing a lot of noise. This is the spill suppression. It's coming straight out of Delta Keyer with spill suppression. If you look at the original shot, look at how much noisier that is. Here's your Delta Keyer. Here's your original shot. All right, so in order to fix that, I actually don't do any spill suppression in Fusion. We do it on the color page. And I'm going to show you how you can basically bypass this spill suppression. So I like to use this thing right here. It's a matte control. So the first thing is go ahead and plug in your backgrounds of the matte control. Drag the matte control up here so we're looking at the output of that. Then we're going to go ahead and take the Delta Keyer output, plug it into the foreground. And then on the matte control node, we're going to use combine alpha. Yeah, see that? Now we're getting an output that has an alpha. And we also want to make sure we turn on this post-multiply final image, post-multiply image. Without that, you will have trouble. It's basically pre-multiplying your matte. I'm not going to get too far into the math there, but it is multiplication. And it does, if you don't do it, you will have trouble. So be sure you turn that on. And let's plug that now into our output. See that, how that changed right away? And that's because of all our spill suppression is now gone. And we're going to plug this into our merge node here. Sorry, we're going to replace the output of the Delta Keyer, and look at that. Now our merge node is using that. Now you can really see what I was kind of concerned about, which is this green edge. So there's a couple ways we can approach that. The thing about it is, if we're not careful, we'll screw up our beautiful hair detail. So let's look at this again. Now, this is looking pretty good, except for that green edge and the fact that there's green kind of everywhere in the shot. That's because she's on a green screen. It's a small stage. There's a lot of reflection. But we are going to deal with that in the color correction phase. But again, I'm really pretty happy with how this hair is looking, and I don't want to screw it up. So we got a few frames cached. Let's take a quick look at this.
Good evening, upright citizen.
Yeah, so this looks really nice on the hair. but the jacket edges are a problem. So what I'm going to do to save myself a headache, and because this shot doesn't move all that much, like she sits there and doesn't really go anywhere, is I'm actually going to do 2 mats. So I'm going to show you how to combine 2 mats. I'm going to use one for the hair and one for the body. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to take this little polygon right here. I'm going to drag that into my thing. And that's my flow is what they call that, I believe, or it's where the nodes are, the flow, I believe that's what they call it. And we're going to go boom. We're going to draw it right around her head. Okay. There's a few ways you can get those edges to be rounded. I like to do it this way. I just kind of plot them in and then I go boom and I click that little button right up there and it rounds the edges. Nice. So now I've got a mat essentially, right? I can give it a little bit of a soft edge just to kind of, ease that a little bit if that's a problem. Now here's what we're going to do with this. We're going to use this with a mat control node to combine 2 different keys. One is the one we've already made, this guy right here, which is now going to become our hair key. So I'm going to hit F2, and now I can change the name of that. I'll call that now hair key. Start naming things because we're going to be adding more nodes, and I don't want to get too confused about what's going on. So now we're going to add another delta keyer. Now we could even start with the one we have, but we're going to change it so much that I'm just going to start with a new one. But we are going to use this same clean plate. Again, I'm right-clicking and then taking it from the output of the clean plate into the output of the delta keyer, and that way I can choose my input. Clean plate. And again, we're going to use this noise-reduced version, and I think I just dragged that to that. It did go right into the output. So there we go. Now we've got it. Okay, again, we get a key right away because we're using the clean plate method. So we don't have to do anything to get that. But again, now what we're looking to do is not worry so much about what's going on up here, but look more at what's going on down here on our jacket area. So the first thing we're going to do, again, we're going to use this the balance slider to kind of get that. That helps a lot, as we saw before. Okay, so that's pretty good. Let's actually get rid of this other viewer for a little bit. If you click this guy right here, look at that. Now we can just have this one. Give us a little bit more space to look at this. Okay. So we're currently looking at the alpha, but we do want to look at it kind of comped over the our background. So what we're going to do first is we're actually going to make another mat control, and we're going to plug this into it. Okay. And we're going to plug our background into it again. Great. I want to look at the whole thing, not the alpha. Okay, so we should, again, we do our combine alpha, final multiply. Now these are reversed. I plugged them in incorrectly. If I hit Command T, that'll switch them. Command T or Control T will always switch your inputs of something like that. It's a very helpful little shortcut. And then we will plug that into our merge. Okay, and now we're going to look at our merge. So remember, this is our comp, essentially. Not our final comp, but our working comp. All right, so we're going to try to get rid of this green line. There's a few ways you can do that. The best way I like to do is, then we're going to rename this, just so we stay clear. This is going to be the body key. We're going to use erode dilate. Remember, use command, kind of make it. Okay, look at that, just a little bit. And now we've more or less gotten rid of that hard green edge. There's still a lot of green in the shot. We're going to deal with that in color correction, but we got rid of that line. The problem is if I use this, it's really probably going to mess up her hair. It may be okay. We can try it. Yeah, let's try it. Let's see how it looks. The hair doesn't look awful. So if that ends up working, then we're done. We can use, instead of this other key, we'll use this one. But let's see how it goes. If we have to combine them, we've already kind of prepared for that. But let's plug this one in. And let's do this. Let's let it cache a little bit. The caching is going to be a little slow because we've got this noise reduction in line. And noise reduction is always a heavy lift. My machine is a Mac M1 Plus, M1 Max. It's a laptop, but it's got a lot of RAM. It's pretty good. But here, let's.
Good Good evening, upright citizens, enemy combatants.
You know what? I'm not hating that key. I'm actually not hating that key. Let's play around with color correction a little bit, because that'll tell us a little bit more of the story. So let's jump into the color tab. I like to jump around like this because especially compositing color, they really influence each other a lot. So I like to kind of do them simultaneously, really. So the way I approach color correction, I'm not really a colorist. I'll be the first to admit that, but I do know some things about color. I've worked with a lot of colorists, a lot of really great colorists in Hollywood, some of the best colorists in town. So I do know a thing or two, but it is not my specialty. My specialty is more of a visual effects background and editing background. But I'm going to show you how I would approach this. And one of the things I did learn working with some of these big colorists, especially some of the guys that have been doing it for a really long time, is they approach things really simply. They try not to complicate it. A lot of those guys, some of the really good ones, most of their show is 1 or 2 nodes, maybe 3. This idea that you need 15 nodes to achieve good color correction, I don't think it's really true, especially with something like this, because we're just trying to simulate like network news, right? Or something like that. This is a little more, it's a comedy thing. It's politically sensitive. I don't want to get too far into it, but that's what we're trying to do. Okay, so let's look at this. Now, I think our backgrounds might still have a little noise in it, but I'm not, because I can see it in that thumbnail right there, but I'm not going to worry about that too much right now. Now, I have a panel plugged in, a color panel, so I'm going to use that, but I'll kind of tell you what I'm doing. You won't be able to see it, but I will tell you what I'm doing. So the first thing I like to do is I like to isolate the skin tones. The reason I do that is because I just think that skin tones are really the most important thing. And I'm going to use this guy, the qualifier. So I like to come up and I just kind of drag him across my actress's face. And then I turn this guy on because this is going to tell me what I just selected. So those are mostly the skin tones. And I'm not where I need to be yet. We're going to drag the scope. I have the scope on a different monitor, so I'm going to pull it in here so we can take a look at it. So the reason I like to do this is you see that line on the left of the vector scope? That is the skin tone line. That's where you want your skin tones to fall. And this really applies to every, race of human being. It's going to be pretty close to that line most of the time. There's going to be differences in saturation, but the skin tones generally going to be real close to that line. So the easiest way for me that I've found, the first adjustment I like to make on the shot is I do a hue rotation to kind of get those skin tones a little bit better, right? And then I'm also going to brighten them up a little bit. So I just did a hue rotation, and now in the lift gamma gain mode, I'm actually twirling my lift gamma gain, my gain, brightening up the shot. So the gain, I'm lifting it with my track, not the trackball, but the ring around the edge. All right, so that looks pretty good. I might pull a little gamma. I'm going to actually do the same thing with the gamma wheel. Okay, great. All right. I think I'm going to start right there. I'm actually going to pull back on the saturation just a touch as well. Not much yet. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to turn off this guy up here, which is allow us to see the key. But as you see right now, that adjustment's still only applying to her face, and she looks pretty ghoulish. That's because we still have this qualifier on. I'm going to reset that now. So I go into my qualifier node, and I hit this little button right here. This is my reset. There we go. Now the correction is applied to the whole shot. And that's helpful. Her skin's looking pretty good. We got a lot of other issues still to deal with. The first one I want to deal with is let's get our blacks and whites in line. Now, there's not really much in this frame that I would really qualify as white, but her jacket is black, more or less. Maybe a dark gray, but it certainly is trending towards black. So if you look on the left-hand side on our waveform monitor, you can see that we've got a little bit of green and red, a little more green and red than blue in our blacks. If you don't know how to read a waveform monitor, essentially black is 0, white is 1023. The monitor on the side, the scope on the left, the waveform monitor is measuring luminance and color. The vector scope is for measuring color. This video is not about those things. If you don't know how to read those, let me know in the comments and I will make a video that's exclusively about how to use a scope. But what we're going to do right now, for those of you that do know how to read one, is try to fix our blacks. We're going to drop them a little bit because they're not quite hitting the bottom. We want to get them a little closer to true black, but we don't want to crush them. So we just want to drop them a little bit. And then the other thing we want to do is we want to use the trackball. Now I'm down in the lift in my shadows because this is the darker part of the image. And what I'm going to do is push a little bit of that blue in to kind of get it to match the green and red. So to do that, I take my ball. See that? Oh, that little adjustment right there. There we go. See, our blacks are already starting to look a little bit better. They're a little more neutral. They don't have such a cast to them. Great. So now I'm going to take my lift ring and drop it just a little again. Boom. Look at that. That's not looking bad. All right, let's turn our background back on. This is your layers here inside of color. I don't know if anybody saw me do that earlier. We can easily quickly turn that back on by reactivating that. Okay, so there we go. We're getting pretty close now. I'm kind of liking this shot. I think it's probably a little noisy in there. Like I think we still have some stuff in our key, but we're going to kind of see how this plays. Let's look quickly in edit. So that's where we're coming from. That's kind of what we're trying to match to. There's a few ways we can match it. I definitely went a little blacker. And there's a couple of other things going on in the color correction. So let's go ahead and darken it a little more. And the other thing we can do, if we want to have that as a reference, that other version of the shot, let's head over to that. So this is the other version of the shot right over here, right? So that's the one we're working on. This is the one that we're trying to match to. As you can see, it's already got a bunch of going on in the color correction. We're going to grab a still because now we can actually use that to compare it to our current shot. So now we're back on our current shot. On my panel, I hit place still. Now, if you don't have a panel, I believe, let's see, you can turn this on. Yeah, it's up in the, you see in the upper left, just above the monitor, this guy right here, you can turn it on that way too. All right, so what it's doing is it's comparing that shot, which is from a previous episode, to my current shot. And I like to I'm trying to get better about matching between episodes, but so I do use that as a reference, but let's use our other shot as a reference here. Okay, so let's try to match to that a little more. Now we can use the scopes for that. If you look down at the bottom, especially, you can really see where the blacks are changing as I roll this back and forth. Basically, I'm just dragging my mouse left and right across the monitor there to move the line that is splitting the two. So I'm definitely going to crush the blacks a touch more to kind of get closer to that. There we go. That's starting to look better. And we're looking at the scope and the image. And we kind of want to, now as we drag back and forth, is that looking a little more consistent? We could probably drop it just a little more. There's some other stuff going on, but that's starting to get pretty close. Now, one of the other things that was going on in that other shot, the one that we're splitting against, is there's spill suppression. So we're going to start to get into that a little bit too. So the first thing I do is I go to my main node and I make a node right in front of it. So I go add node, add serial before. You can also use Shift S. And now you've got a node just before. So what we're going to try to do, I'm going to turn off my split for a second, is get rid of some of the green in there. So I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to show you the technique I really love. Now, I'm kind of seeing some issues with this key. Look at her hair there. So I might do that split technique. We might go back and do that, but let's do a little bit of this first. So see the edges here of this? We're still seeing some green in her coat and stuff. So let's try to get rid of some of that. And also, we're also seeing some green up here in her hair, which is really where we want to kind of get rid of it. So what I do is I've got my curves, and I use the second one here, which is hue versus what do I call it? Hue versus hue. Excuse me. Got a little allergies going on here. So hue versus hue. What I do there is I'll select the color, the green that I don't love, that I want to kind of get out of there. Let's look at this shoulder because I think this is a good place to start. Because I'm probably going to mess with that hair a little more, so we might come back to that. I think I'm going to mess with the comp. All right, so definitely still getting some green right in here. So we just drag this eyedropper and it makes a selection. Boom, see that right there? So it selected that. Now I can actually rotate that hue. Look at what's happening. It's kind of going towards magenta, which is a lot what most spill suppression systems do. They push the green toward magenta. That's a little too far. I wanted to just show you what it was doing, but you can pull back on it until it looks a little more natural. I'm just, again, dragging in the hue rotate. So that looks pretty good. That's already getting rid of some of the green. So I would do that. And I would do them all before my main correction. But once I do my first one, I build after that. So I do an Alt-S, add another node after that if I wanted to do a little more. But I want to kind of wrap this up. You get the general idea of what I'm doing. Sorry, I hit my mic there. I'm sorry about that. But I want to show you this last technique because this is a really powerful technique that I think I would probably, and I know I used on the other version of this shot, and I'm probably going to use on this. And this is the thing I'm talking about of combining two mats. So if you look closely, we've got our body key right here, right? And our hair key, right? So we want to combine those two mats, but we want to isolate them. So we're just using the hair on the head and we're using the body on the body. So if you remember before, we used this mat control key node to essentially use what was our first key, this body key, or actually this was our first key, but we reconnected this. So basically what we're doing with this is we're taking the key coming out of this delta keyer and we're combining it with the original shot to make a mat key. Now we're going to do something similar, but first we're going to take both of these keyers and plug them into a mat control node. So let's go ahead and do that. There's one. And for now, we're not going to worry about the order. One goes into the background, and the other goes into the foreground. Okay. And we're also going to use this guy over here, the polygon we made a little bit earlier. All right, so let's drag this guy up here, see what's happening with it. Right now, it's got no operations. We want to combine alpha again. Okay, good. Looks pretty good. Remember to turn on our pulse multiply image. Now this guy right here, we're going to right click and drag it down so we get our menu. And we're going to use effect mask. Okay. So now to make sure it's doing it properly, to make sure that the hair is on the top and the body's on the bottom, we're going to start looking at these keys independently. So let's see. This is our hair right here, right? So that, and let's look at just the alpha channel. That way we get all of our spill suppression out of there. So right now, that's our hair key. If I drag this up, oh, we have the wrong one. So remember what we do? We hit Command T. We switch the inputs. Now I think the hair key is the same on both of those. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, get down in the comments and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about or that you don't understand. And we'll get into it. Let's go. So now we want to take this. This is our new mat control. But right now, it's just really usable as the mat. What we want to do is take it to this guy, which is our output. But right now, that's only seeing one of the mats. I believe it's the body key. Yeah. We want to now plug where the body key is plugged in. We want to plug our new mat control in. See that? It changed. So as long as we've got both pulse multiplies image on, which it looks like we do, we should be good to go. Let's go step out here. And let's see how this is looking now. I think we're pretty good on this shot. It's not, it may not be as refined as the one before it. Yeah, I probably like that a little better. I've got some mid-tone detail going on in the color correction and some beauty work, some other stuff that I'm not going to get into because that's the basics. That's really how I would go. Okay, I'm pretty happy with this comp now. I think we still got a little bit of an edge here. So if I wanted to clean that up, the quickest way, I would step right back into Fusion. I'd go to my body key, and I'd look at our little temp comp. Zoom in, get to our edge again. Because now it's coming, okay, so everything's right. But we're gonna pull in on this. Let's see, that's the hair key, not that one. This guy. Yeah. We're going to pull in a little more here. We should see quite a bit. Oh, so we've got a different issue going on there. So what we need to do is clean up our noise a little bit more in probably both of these keys. Let's see where our noise situation is. Yeah, I think that's what it is because I didn't actually do this. Yeah, there we go. So that's what got us. So we always have to be careful about that noise. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to quickly clean that up. Same way we did before. We're going to pull that right up till the noise goes away. Okay, now I think we're going to have a much happier key. Look at that. Looks great. Okay. So I hope that was helpful. You saw the whole real-time process. I'm probably going to cut out the space where I had to figure out the situation with the noise. But you really kind of saw the way I would work through something. And I would work through it with you if you hire me to do Resolve Mastery one-on-one coaching. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly let this cache out a little bit. We got a little bit of it. Actually, you know what? We'll go to the first one because there's a little more of that one cached. I'm going to turn off the audio so I don't offend anyone with my political humor. All right, but look at that. That looks really nice, right? Let's go full screen so we can kind of see that together. So this is what we're able to accomplish. This has got a little more work than the shot we just saw, but I approached it the same way. So there's two keys. Did the color correction, did the spill suppression, did everything in color. I'd probably I'd do some little color correction on my background next. But anyway, thanks for watching my first Resolve Mastery video.